Hi everyone, it's me again, Curtis. So, in this video, I want to discuss the idea of concluding your speech, okay? As I mentioned previously, personally, I don't think there's one particular area of a speech that is more important than others. You know, you've heard that old saying, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And so when you have your speech, you've got your introduction, your main body, your conclusion, you've got the presentation of the speech. It's all vitally important. However, and this is just me speaking as an instructor, and this is my own take on things. Some of you who might be new to public speaking might have some particular issues with the delivery of your speeches that's going to take time and effort and practice to get rid of bad habits and replace them with good habits. For example, and I include myself in this, but like a lot of students who have issues with the vocal pauses, the excessive you knows, whatever, those types of things. If you're the type of person that has a lot of those issues, it's going to take time and practice to cut down on them. Maybe not eliminate them totally, but cut down on them. So what you're doing is you're trying to get rid of a bad habit and learn a new habit. Just in the same way that if a basketball player was having problems with his free throws or something, he'd have to stay after practice or come before practice and get more reps in with his coach helping him so he gets the technique down properly. So you see what I'm saying. Well, anyway, okay. So one thing that I do see for students that have issues with the delivery aspects of speeches, it's even more important that you have your content down. So if you've seen in this Speech 2 handouts folder, there's a Speech 2 rubric, and you see that that's how I'm going to, the things that I'm looking for from each section of your speech, and what I'll be basing my grade on, okay? Well, typically, if a student has issues with delivery, and it's going to take time and effort to work through those issues. The way I've structured the rubric is that there's 5 points for each section. So it's pretty typical that a student who puts the material together but still has delivery issues, they might get a 5 out of 5 on the intro, 5 out of 5 on the main body, 5 out of 5 on the conclusion, and then maybe let's say their delivery had some problems, and let's say they only get 1 or a 2 out of 5 on delivery. Well, that's still 16 to 17 points out of 20. So even if your delivery was, say, really, really, bad, but you got 5 out of 5 on the first 3 sections, and then you get a 1 on delivery, that's 16 out of 20. That's a B. So you see what I'm doing? I'm trying to stack the cards in your favor. Okay. So the reason I'm saying that is that on Speech 2 in particular, it's pretty common that students will do really well on their introduction part of their speech, and then do pretty well in the main body, and then for some reason, usually it might be because they waited till the last minute to put the speech together, is that they will have a very poor conclusion, or in some cases no conclusion at all. This is very similar to what I see when I teach English composition. I can't tell you how many times I've been reading, let's say reading through a 6 to 7 page paper. First 5 pages are really good. And then somewhere about the 5th page or so, right around that area, you could see, as an instructor, I can see the shift. It goes from being a really good paper to very mediocre very quickly. And what I imagine is going on, because remember that I was an undergraduate 2 years ago, is that the students reached their limit and became exhausted. They were really working hard and writing and doing a really good job. They got about 2/3 of the way, 3/4 of the way through the assignment, and they just crashed. And now they went from like working really hard to saying, I just want to get this stuff over with. And you could tell. And when I've read enough academic papers that I can tell when that shift happens. And I think it's very similar with students that have poor or no conclusion, is that they waited the last minute to put the speech together, and that usually means they didn't practice the speech either, maybe once or twice. But not having a conclusion can kill you, especially if you're one of those, because it's 5 points, right? If you're one of those students that has delivery issues, if you only get a 1 out of 2 on delivery and only get, say, a 1 out of 2, 1 or 2 on your conclusion, now you've really shot yourself in the foot. So it's vitally important, not just strategically, because I am talking strategically, because I want you to get the best grade possible, but having a good conclusion is vitally important for getting the message across to your audience, okay? So I'm going to go over the conclusion handout that's in the Speech 2 related handouts folder, okay? Okay. So your conclusion is literally the last thing that your audience hears during your speech. It's important that your final remarks leave a lasting and profound impression on them. Okay? Because remember, again, whether it's 3 minutes or 30 minutes, no one's going to remember every single thing that you said in your speech. Okay? Just in the same way that when you watch a 2-hour movie, you don't remember every single thing that happens. You remember the high points, right? So, an effective conclusion will serve 4 functions, okay? It restates your thesis and summarizes your main points, okay? It reminds the audience about, again, what you just talked about for the past 4 or 5 minutes. Re-emphasize your main idea and your thesis in a memorable way. Motivate the audience to respond or further investigate your topic. Some instructors call this a call to action, okay? And provide closure. So as you move into your conclusion, you'll want to have some sort of transitional phrase that alerts your audience that you're finishing up. And then I have an example, okay? So let's say I'm giving a speech on physical therapy. I've done my intro, I've done the main body. Now I'm transitioning it into my conclusion. So, as you can see, being a physical therapist is a great career for people who want to help others, make a good living, and have long-term job security. Okay, so now I've just restated my thesis. Okay. Then after you've restated your thesis, you can summarize the main points of your speech. Since you've spent the last several minutes talking about your topic, you obviously aren't going to revisit every specific detail. So you may want to frame your summary like this. In my discussion on being a physical therapist, I told you about point 1, then I discussed point 2, and lastly I explained point 3. So when you have that restatement of the thesis, a short summary, you've reminded the audience what you've talked about, okay? Then once you've restated your thesis and summarized your main points, you may want to add a memorable fact or statistic to reinforce just how awesome your particular career field is. Okay? Doing this adds a bit of final reinforcement for your audience, okay? Also, you can provide your audience with some web addresses, suggestions on books, etc., that might provide detailed information on your career. I always tell my students, and I always have some students that have issues with the time limits, okay? So for this speech, right, you've got 5 to 7 minutes. You might have a lot of great information on your particular career field, but due to time constraints, you're going to have to edit some stuff out. It's okay to let the audience know that. So in your conclusion, you could say something along the lines like this. Due to time constraints, I could only provide a brief introduction to being a physical therapist. However, if anyone is interested in learning more about being a physical therapist, I recommend such and such website for more detailed information on this wonderful career field. So you've let the audience know, hey, due to time constraints today, I could just give you a brief overview of what this career entails. If you're interested in learning more, and then you offer a place for them to go for any potentially interested audience members. Okay? And then finally, you may want to end your speech with a memorable thought or quote. Okay, some students like to do that. It's pretty typical that a student might finish their career speech and then have a quote by a famous person that talks about, chasing your dreams or something like that, something inspirational. That's totally cool. Okay. And there's a few more things on here, but I won't go into too much detail. But read over this conclusions handout. Please watch the video in the public speaking tips video links, okay? And then chapter 14, which again I know you haven't got to, but chapter 14 of your textbook covers conclusions in more depth, okay? So please check that out. So, I really can't emphasize how important it is to have a good, solid conclusion. Some people, and you'll see when you watch the video, some people are of the opinion that the conclusion is more important than the introduction. I can see that point of view, even though I think it's all vitally important. But the conclusion really is the last chance for you to make an impression on your audience. Okay? All right. Well, I hope this information helps. And it's up to you now to implement this information, take it on board, and use it when putting your speech together, okay? All right. That's all for now. Have a good day.